SpongeBob SquarePants Mysteries, Ooze in the Ocean. Chapter 18.
I knew right away that my partner and I were in a pickle. And if you've ever been in a pickle, you know it's not a good place to be. Even if you like pickles, which I do, especially on Krabby Patties. But we're not talking about delicious food. We're talking danger with extra risk and a side order of menace. We'd heard the voices in the next room and they didn't sound friendly. Actually, they sounded familiar. I just couldn't place where I'd heard them. Nowhere good, I was guessing. And it didn't take a genius to figure out that we were outnumbered.
As SpongeBob and Patrick scrambled to their feet, 5 villains rushed into the room ready to attack. The fearsome gang was made up of the Atomic Flounder, rumored to have retired. The Atomic Flounder was said to be the horrible product of a nuclear experiment gone wrong. He had one eye in the middle of his face and another on the end of a long stalk sprouting out of the back of his head. In addition to his 2 muscular arms, a smaller arm grew out of his upper right arm, and all 3 could form fists and deliver punches. Despite his age, the Atomic Flounder's 2 legs still looked powerful, and so did his fishy tail and fin. From a distance, he could blast his foes with radioactive breath. Up close, he could use his nuclear touch, causing victims to mutate with the mere stroke of a finger. He might have been getting along in years, but he was still a fish you definitely didn't want to tangle with. Man Ray, with the body of a human and the head of a manta ray, Man Ray ruthlessly used any means necessary to gain power and domination over others. Dressed in blue boots, blue gloves, a blue helmet, and red tights, he loved zapping his enemies with rays. Man Ray seemed to have never met an evil scheme he didn't like. The Dirty Bubble, he floated through life terrorizing the citizens of Bikini Bottom. A brown blot on their undersea existence, with large glaring eyes and a jagged mouth, he used his awesome surface tension to trap and hold unsuspecting victims. He could also envelope his allies and shoot them out, sending them rocketing through the air. Jumbo Shrimp, the ocean's most powerful crustacean, had many features that made him a formidable opponent in any fight. He was super strong, able to fling heavy bodies across rooms as if they were pebbles. With his huge red claws, he could crush limbs in his grasp. His 4 legs were shaped like daggers. His muscular tail ended in a sharp spike. Even his long needle-like nose could serve as a weapon in close combat, and he didn't hesitate to bite adversaries with his chiseled teeth. The Sinister Slug. He fits any description perfectly. A radioactive mutant slug. He had to be the source of all the mysterious trails of glowing green ooze. He was hideous with a lumpy gray body dotted with green spots and tufts of coarse black hair. His sharp, irregular teeth were ready to tear and slash. His solid red eyes were fixed in a malevolent stare. The Sinister Slug's ooze enabled him to climb up vertical surfaces like walls and cliffs, and he could spit sticky slime, immobilizing targets with his gummy mucus. SpongeBob and Patrick were up against all 5 of these fiends at once. This called for bold action. Jabbing an accusing finger in their direction, SpongeBob demanded,
"What are you criminals doing here in the Merma lair?"
"We could ask you the same thing," the Atomic Flounder snarled. "You don't look like Merman and Barnacle Boy to me. You look like a couple of..." He paused, peering at the duo. "Reporters?"
"Detectives,"
SpongeBob said proudly. "Private eyes," Patrick announced at the same time. "Make up your minds," Man Ray growled. "Which is it?" Patrick shrugged. "They're basically the same thing."
"Either way," SpongeBob said, "we're here to stop bad guys like you."
"Oh yeah?" the Dirty Bubble sneered. "We'd like to see you try. Let's get 'em!" The Dirty Bubble soared through the air. Man Ray fired his ray gun. Sword! SpongeBob and Patrick dove for cover. Jumbo Shrimp's skittered forward on his four pointy legs, snapping his claws. The sinister slug slithered across the floor, leaving a trail of glowing green ooze. Ooh! The atomic flounder ran, his boots landing heavily on the ground and his three hands clenched in tight fists. SpongeBob and Patrick crouched behind a big control panel covered in dials and buttons. He looked as though he were studying it, transfixed by the lights and gauges.
Patrick, forget the computers!
SpongeBob cried.
Grab a weapon for the pegboard!
Which one? Patrick asked.
Anyone! Whichever one you can reach!
Patrick rolled over to the pegboard of gadgets and grabbed the handiest device. Take this, bad guys! He yelled, pulling the contraption's trigger. A tiny pair of scissors popped out of the end, cutting the air. Snip, snip, snip! Ha ha ha! Atomic Flounder laughed. What's that you're going to fight us with? A nose hair trimmer? Man Ray pretended to be frightened. Oh my! Whatever shall we do without our long, luxurious nose hairs? Frustrated, Patrick flung the nose hair trimmer at Jumbo Shrimp. It bounced harmlessly off his red chest and smashed to bits on the stone floor of the cave. Sorry, SpongeBob! He yelled. I tried!
No problem, Patrick! SpongeBob cried. During your brilliant diversion, I was able to get my hands on this!
He aimed another futuristic device from the pegboard at the villains and switched it on. Whoosh! Pleasantly warm air blew out of the gadget. Huh? SpongeBob said.
A hairdryer?
The bad guys all laughed. Instead of the wall of weapons, the Dirty Bubble chortled. It seems you've found the pegboard of personal grooming. Why won't you hang a hairdryer and a nose hair trimmer on the same board with a marmoscope? Patrick wondered. Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy really need to get their stuff better organized. All right, enough of this, the Atomic Flounder said. Dirty Bubble, capture them! SpongeBob and Patrick ran in separate directions, ducking and dodging behind cabinets and display cases. But the Dirty Bubble chased them down, shooting his tongue out and wrapping it around Patrick and SpongeBob and pulling them back into his body. They beat their fists against the inside of the Dirty Bubble, but he just laughed. Ha ha ha! Give it up! Stronger victims than you have failed to escape my filthy film! He flew them over to a barred cell. Man Ray held the door open. The Dirty Bubble jetted his two prisoners through the door into the cage. Man Ray slammed the door shut. Clang! Nice work, Dirty Bubble and Man Ray, the Atomic Flounder said. With those two locked up, we can get back to the task at hand. He started to lead the others out of the chamber. SpongeBob thought quickly.
Oh, what could the task at hand be?
Before the gang had burst into the room, he'd overheard them talking about searching for something. Even though he didn't know what they were looking for, it didn't mean he couldn't give them a hard time about it.
Still hunting, huh?
The cunning detective jeered.
Well, let me give you a little hint. You're getting colder. Colder. Ooh, now you're freezing cold.
The Atomic Flounder turned back, staring at SpongeBob with both eyes, the one on his face and the one on the stalk behind his head. Who said we're hunting for anything? SpongeBob snorted.
Isn't it obvious? Why else would you go to all the trouble and rent an Alaskan bullworm to tunnel into the Mama Lair?
Also, Patrick added, we heard you say you were hunting for something. Alaskan bullworm? Jumbo Shrimp asked, startled. How do you know about that? Tipping his hat back, SpongeBob got a sly look on his face and said,
Oh, we know plenty. We've been on this case for a while, see?
He decided to try a little flattery.
But I gotta admit, you had a spoon from the start. As diabolical schemes go, yours was brilliant.
He looked the Atomic Flounder in the eye, the one in the middle of his face.
Not exactly the kind of thing you'd expect from a guy everybody says is retired.
Retirement? The Atomic Flounder practically spat. It's not all it's cracked out to be. Dull, boring, completely lacking in chaotic pandemonium. He smiled a cruel smile. So I decided to get the old game back together. figured they couldn't resist one more joyride through Bikini Bottom in the Evil Mobile.
The Evil Mobile? Right, SpongeBob said, remembering. It was you! You were the fan who asked about the Evil Mobile at the Merman and Barnacle Boy Fan Day!
Nice work, kid. Man Ray grinned through his mask. Yeah, that fan was me. First we had to find out where the Evil Mobile was. It was child's play to disguise myself as a fan and go ask. Barnacle Boy said that information was classified, but Merman Man spilled the beans. The old fool. He laughed a cruel mocking laugh. When SpongeBob heard that, anger flared up inside him. Merman Man wasn't a fool. He was a hero. But he hid his true feelings grinning.
What a dope! But the morning of Fan Day wasn't your first visit to the rest home. You were there the night before, and other nights before that.
He tilted his chin toward the sinister slug.
The shellless wonder here left trails of green ooze behind the building.
The sinister slug scowled at being called a shellless wonder, but the atomic flounder just shrugged. We were casing the joint. We thought maybe we could get some info about the Evil Mobile's location by searching Merman and Barnacle Boy's room at night while they were sleeping. Very soundly, Man Ray added, and snoring loudly. The only helpful thing we found in their room was a flyer about Fan Day, the atomic flounder continued. That gave us the idea to ask about the Evil Mobile during the question and answer period. It gave me the idea, Man Ray corrected. The atomic flounder ignored him. Once we knew the Evil Mobile was in the Merma lair, it was just a matter of breaking into the cave.
Tunneling in, SpongeBob said, with a trained Alaskan bullworm, so you went to Beth.
The atomic flounder raised his heavy black eyebrow. How do you know about Beth? It's our business to know about Beth, Patrick said. And other things also are known by us. The private eyes, see?
Only trouble was, SpongeBob continued, Beth charges plenty for the use of her worm. And you guys hadn't done a job in years, so you were flat broke. Flat as a flounder.
The atomic flounder looked offended. I am not flat, he countered. I'm thin-boned. To get the money to pay Beth, Patrick said, taking up the tale, he decided to rob Squilliam. Everybody knows he's the fanciest guy in Bikini Bottom, so he's sure to have something worth a lot of dough. Why are we standing around yakking with these bozos? The Dirty Bubble protested. Let's find that Evil Mobile. But the atomic flounder raised a hand silencing the Dirty Bubble. In a minute, maybe these bozos can tell us where it is. Save us some trouble. He turned back to SpongeBob. Go on, you were saying about my brilliant scheme.
So real early in the morning, you headed to Squilliam's mansion, SpongeBob said. You found his antique monobrow comb covered in nice sparkly jewels and figured that satisfied Beth. Only mistake you made was letting the slug leave another ooze trail behind. You really ought to get him a diaper or something.
Growling, the sinister slug lurched forward, ready to attack SpongeBob, but the other villains held him back. Sorry, okay. When you gave Beth the monobrow comb, Patrick said, she said she'd let you use the Alaskan bullworm to tunnel into the Merma lair. Yes, the atomic flounder said, smiling. I guess we wore the beast out. It's an eternal sleeping.
Not anymore, SpongeBob said. I woke it up.
Then it took off down a new tunnel, Patrick said, headed for parts unknown. The bad guys looked a little worried. It probably went straight back to Beth, the atomic flounder said. I sure hope so, Man Ray said. We can't afford to lose our deposit.
And so, here we all are, SpongeBob said, holding his hands out wide. You tunnel in and start looking for the Evil Mobile, But before you can find it, a couple of detectives who've been hot on your trail sneak in and bust up your little search party.
The atomic flounder nodded. Think you're clever, huh? Got it all figured out? Yup, Patrick said proudly. We sure do. Well, if you're so clever, the atomic flounder continued, maybe you can tell us where Merman and Barnacle Boy have hidden our evil mobile. SpongeBob looked defiant.
And just why would we do that?
Raising his right arm, the atomic flounder slowly walked toward the cage. Because if you don't, you'll find out what happens when I use my nuclear touch. SpongeBob and Patrick drew back, huddling at the far end of the cell. They weren't sure exactly what the atomic flounder's nuclear touch did, but they didn't like the sound of it. They certainly didn't want to turn into mutant freaks like the Sinister Slug. Hold it right there, atomic flounder, a voice in the darkness said. You're not touching anybody.
Stay tuned for chapter 19 coming up soon.